taking notes. Everyone is encouraged to take notes. There's a notebook available outside as well, inshallah ta'ala.
Assalamu alaikum. If we can have the brothers and sisters please return to the masjid. We'll start with the next program inshallah. The next talk will be presented by Maulana Yousuf Ghouse. Maulana Yousuf was born and raised in the Chicagoland area where he completed his memorization of the Holy Quran at the Islamic Institute of Education in Elgin, Illinois. After graduating from UIC with a degree in mathematics, he pursued Islamic studies full-time, first at Darus Salam, and later he would go to Johannesburg, South Africa, where he studied at Darul Ulum Zakaria. After graduating, he spent some additional time pursuing further studies in South Africa, and now he has returned as a teacher here at Darus Salam. Today's talk, inshallah, he will be discussing the story of Sayyiduna Musa alayhi salam and Sayyiduna Khidr alayhi salam. So in this story, Maulana Sahib has actually prepared a PowerPoint for all of us because he's addressing some very hot button issues, things that we have trouble sometimes explaining and even understanding ourselves. Things like the problem of evil, things like predestination, ilmul ghaib, things like why do these things exist, how do they exist. Inshallah, Maulana Sahib will address all of these issues and clarify them in a manner which all of us will be able to understand. Jazakullahu Khairun. Please all pay attention as best as possible.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما. So as the MC announced, we'll be going through, inshallah, the story of Musa alayhi salam and Khidr alayhi salam. The story is very long, and many of us might already be acquainted with the story, but just for the sake of, in case anybody needs a refresher or somebody might have forgotten the details, we'll quickly go through the sequence of verses that discusses Musa alayhi salam and Khidr. So that'll be the format that we'll follow, and then we'll discuss briefly a few points that we can derive from the story. So before I guess formally began my study of Islam, I heard of the story of Musa alayhi salam and Khidr, and I heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's a hadith in which he says, "Rahimallahu Musa, law sabara lata'allamna akthar min hadha," something along those lines. That may Allah have mercy on Musa alayhi salam. If Musa alayhi salam had only been patient, had he only not objected to Khidr alayhi salam, then we would have learned more and more. Musa alayhi salam was a prophet, and he set out to go meet Khidr to learn some stuff from him. But as we'll shortly see, Musa alayhi salam, the period that he spent with Khidr alayhi salam was cut short because due to some factors that we'll discuss. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if only Musa alayhi salam had stayed with him longer, we would have learned more and more. So to me, my perception of this story was always that it's sort of cut short, in that there's not really so much that we can learn from this story because it's just sort of the beginning of it, but we don't really know what happened afterwards because the whole Musa alayhi salam returned and he didn't spend additional time with Khidr alayhi salam. So for many years that was my perception of this story, that there's not really so much that we can learn from it because it's just something that was about to happen, but it didn't really carry on, it didn't really carry through. But then once I started studying the tafsir of this and started reading the commentary of the hadith and listening to it in class, I realized that there's just so much that we can take from this story. There's really something for everybody in this story. So what I'll do, inshallah, what we'll do over the next few minutes is that we'll quickly go through the sequence of ayat, the verses that discuss this, and we'll discuss some points that are derived from it. So the way Allah Ta'ala mentions this story in Surah Al-Kahf, which many of us are familiar with. Many of us read Surah Kahf on Friday. The background to this story is that somebody had asked Musa alayhi salam who is the most knowledgeable person? Musa alayhi salam responded by saying, well, I am, because he was the prophet of the time. He was the one who was receiving divine knowledge from Allah Ta'ala. So he responded, which pretty much factually, saying that I'm the most knowledgeable person. Allah Ta'ala said that told Musa alayhi salam. Allah Ta'ala revealed to Musa alayhi salam that there's actually somebody who has a type of knowledge that you don't have. There's somebody who has some knowledge that you don't. So Musa alayhi salam immediately said, where is this person? Where can I find him? So Allah Ta'ala revealed to Musa alayhi salam some sort of ambiguous directions, which we'll discuss shortly. And Musa alayhi salam, upon that, he set upon his path, he embarked on his path to go and seek out this person, Al-Khidr alayhi salam. So Allah Ta'ala says, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِفَتَاهُ لَا أَبْرَحُ حَتَّى أَبْلُغَ مَجْمَعَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ أَوْ أَمْضِيَ حُقُبًا. And when Musa alayhi salam said to his servant, Musa alayhi salam was traveling with his servant Yusha bin Nun alayhi salam, who later became a prophet. He said, I will not cease traveling until I reach the junction of the two seas or continue for a long period. So Musa alayhi salam was told two things about where he would find this teacher. He was told that you'll find this teacher where the two seas meet each other. We might think that that's maybe something that is not so hard to find, because we have a general idea of where two seas might meet. Some of this, the respected ulama that we just had the opportunity to hear a few minutes ago, they all recently traveled to South Africa. In South Africa is a city called Cape Town, in which the Atlantic Ocean meets the Indian Ocean. So we would think that this is pretty clear direction, that where the two seas meet. But in reality, you can only kind of determine where two seas meet if you're on land. If you're just traveling in the ocean, you're just riding a boat, it's very hard to distinguish where one sea stops and the other sea starts. So Musa alayhi salam was going along his journey. And he said that, I'm not going to stop, we're not going to stop until we reach Majma' al-Bahrain, where the two oceans meet. And this was literally, they were looking for where the two oceans met. But also this is symbolic as well, because Musa alayhi salam was an ocean of knowledge in himself. And similarly, Al-Khidr, the teacher whom he was seeking, was also an ocean of knowledge. So Allah Ta'ala wanted it that the two oceans meet at the joining of the two oceans. So then the story goes on. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَجْمَعَ بَيْنِهِمَا نَسِيَ حُوتَهُمَا فَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلَهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ سَرَبًا. Then when they reached the place where the junction of the two oceans, they both forgot their fish. And the fish took its course in the sea, slipping away. So this is a little bit confusing. So we understand the explanation of this from a hadith that's in Sahih al-Bukhari. The hadith explains that جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَهُ حُوتًا عَلَامَةً, that Allah Ta'ala made the sign of where Musa alayhi salam was to find this teacher, where he would lose this fish. So again, the directions are very ambiguous, that you will find your teacher where you lose your fish. Just keep an eye on your fish, but if you ever lose it, your teacher will be somewhere around there. So it's very ambiguous. We'll discuss why in a minute. One point that we learn from this is that acquiring knowledge is a lifelong journey. Musa alayhi salam was already a prophet. He was already the most knowledgeable person around, but acquiring knowledge is not something that we just do for a limited amount of time. Rather, acquiring knowledge is really a lifelong pursuit. One of the foremost scholars of hadith today, Sheikh Muhammad Awama, he writes in the very beginning of pretty much his magnum opus, Tadrib al-Rawi, his commentary on Tadrib al-Rawi, saying that this is a product of 6 decades of dedication to this field. Recently, along with the students who are just up here, I had the opportunity to visit South Africa. One of my teachers that I met over there in South Africa told us that he runs the Hifz program. And the Hifz program that he runs starts at 4:30 in the morning. And that's just how it's structured. And then people actually show up there at 4:30 every single morning. And there's a person who came to speak to him, saying that he's married, children, has a job, maybe in his mid-40s or something like that. He said that he wants to memorize Quran, but he just doesn't really find the time. He tried many times in the past, but it's just really hard for him to stay consistent and memorize Quran. So Maulana Burhan Mia, the teacher that was telling us the story, told him that, well, no problem, don't worry about it. Just meet me tomorrow at 4:30 and you can start then. So sure enough, the person was there at 4:30 in the morning, and he stayed consistent with it, and several years later, as a working man with a family, children, he had memorized the entire Quran. One of the other shuyukh of hadith, the Shaykh al-Hadith in South Africa, Mufti Muhammad Ali, he's the one that teaches Sunan al-Tirmidhi in Darul Zakariya, one of the madrasas that we visited. He just finished his memorization of Quran a few years ago. He's in his 60s. I mean, after becoming a Shaykh al-Hadith, studying pretty much everything that there is to study amongst the Islamic sciences, he said, I still haven't memorized the Quran, I need to memorize the Quran. So every day with his wife and with his sons, he would memorize new portions of the Quran and review the Quran. And like that, just a few years ago, he finished his memorization of Quran. So this is an inspiration for all of us. No matter what juncture we're at in our lives, there's always more knowledge to pursue. If we feel that we want to memorize the Quran or we want to embark on a formal course of study of knowledge, then there's nothing really stopping us. There's so many examples. And over here we see Musa alayhi salam, who is a prophet of Allah, ulul azmi min al-rusul, yet he embarked on a journey of knowledge. Khatib Baghdadi, in his book Ar-Rihla fi Talab al-Hadith, he mentions this story as well. That the first thing that we can understand from this is that Musa alayhi salam was pursuing knowledge. So if we pursue knowledge, then we're following in the footsteps of Musa alayhi salam. So now, فَلَمَّا جَاوَزَا قَالَ continuing on with the story. فَلَمَّا جَاوَزَا قَالَ لِفَتَاهُ آتِنَا غَدَاءَنَا لَقَدْ لَقِينَا مِنْ سَفَرِنَا هَذَا نَصَبًا. When they had gone past the joining of the two seas, Musa alayhi salam said to the servant, Yusha bin Nun, bring us our morning meal, bring our breakfast. We have endured much hardship in this journey. And this journey has been long and tiring. What do we understand from this? We understand that if we want to pursue knowledge, then there might be some hardship involved. We should be ready and accepting to endure hardship for the sake of the knowledge. And we should try to tire ourselves in the pursuit of knowledge. So this is what Allah Ta'ala does to sift out those people who are sincere in their pursuit of knowledge versus those who are just operating on zeal, on josh, as they say in Urdu. That sometimes you might hear a lecture about pursuing knowledge and we're very excited and we're like, that's it, I'm going to register for the next weekend course or the next evening course tomorrow. And then maybe we might pursue it for a week or two and then we get busy and we're not able to continue. So what is it? Naturally, when somebody decides to do something, Allah, somebody wants to pursue knowledge, then Allah Ta'ala test that person. Allah Ta'ala might put obstacles in that. And these obstacles are just meant to give us an opportunity to tire ourselves for the sake of knowledge. And if we do that by tiring ourselves in the pursuit of knowledge, there's two things that happen. Amongst other things, we gain more value for the knowledge